Hello to everybody. Thanks for joining us again. We're here for USA number 4, episode number 4. And it's another good one. In fact, I think they get better every week.
Yeah, they do. The action picks up, and this is Rewind Review. And like Ron says, this is show number 4. And you and Gordon opened the show, and out comes Austin Idol to join for a promo.
Yeah, basically, and he comes out and then praises the USA. I think he's probably headed to catch a plane,
Yeah.
So he's actually there. That's the second show that he's been on since he came. So basically, we're doing 3 shows at a time, 3 television programs at a time. And he's headed out of town, but he has a nice little segment there, and he says, it's a great program and a great TV show. And what I really noticed is that crowd reaction. I mean, we got a really great crowd.
The crowd's bigger now too.
Bigger.
Yeah.
Actually, probably going to be the same 3 crowds for 3 shows in a row.
Sure.
Right. So, and I think, as I remember, it's going to get even bigger. So it's going to get better and better, and that part of it as well. First match, and I'd like to explain, maybe you can explain to people who Phil Rainey was. We really haven't talked much about
Wow,
Phil.
we haven't. Phil, when we went to Channel 10 in 1975 with Southeastern Wrestling, Phil was my broadcast partner and did ring announcing as well. But Phil was a personality until he'd been on 26 at the time, and actually worked at every station, I think, before he finally quit working TV. But just a great guy. And I'll tell you the truth, working with him was a lot of fun. And it was different as much because not being in the wrestling business, he was asking me questions that the fans would be more apt to ask. So he actually gave me a wider berth to be creative, on the microphone, because normally, if you and I are talking like in a bubble, right? We talk like wrestlers because we are. But yeah, quick story. Phil wore a toupee. And once the boys found out that Phil wore a toupee, no one would have ever done this. But they always threatened somebody's going to pull it off in the middle of the ring when he's doing ring announcing. And I had to tell him, Phil, you cannot walk around with your microphone in one hand and your hand on top with the other. And finally told the guys, quit bugging him with that, right? But it was the way it was big boys playing kiddish jokes. But he was a great guy. Phil's been
a great announcer. And he not only did the television, he came to the Coliseum. He introduced every event, Coliseum, out the park, amphitheater,
and then,
Jacob Bill, whatever.
And then when Cornette had Smoky Mountain, when we did the Night of Legends, he was helped me do the presentations with the Hall of Fame stuff. And so, yeah, he was involved. And like I say, good guy, a professional, and a hell of a friend, too.
And first match was the Riches again, and by golly, I was just as impressed as the first match they had. The second one was just as good, and those boys were a heck of a team.
They were on fire. They're young, good-looking kids, and baby faces like this. We used to say the grandmothers and the little girls will cry when they get their asses handed to them. But that's true. I mean, it was an identification thing. But yeah, they were a good, solid team. I said to you, the mask guys, I wasn't sure who they were, but we were talking about feeding a couple weeks here on the show. Like if I take a bump and feed back to the guy without being told or making him come get me. And these guys are feeding pretty well. And of course, the one guy, after you told me who he was, I had identified because I'd worked with him. That was was somewhere in between there, I guess.
Yeah, Chris Powers was the one who had the white outfit, was totally white outfit, and the other one was Tim Frye that had the scrub pants on. Tim Frye was the same guy that rappelled from the Coliseum ceiling. He did the Shoguns for us and Continental. He's going to be later on in USA. He's going to become the Stormtrooper, another Ron Wright guy. He's pretty much been highly involved for years with Southeastern, Continental, and USA.
When I saw the name The Interns, I thought, if you had everybody I've ever known as an intern you could have a fan club convention with just them, and
Yeah.
nobody else would have to show up.
Yeah, there was a lot of interns around.
Yes,
that's
they
for
were.
darn sure.
Yes, there were.
You know, very, very much so. And, you know, so, and in this tag match, twice in a row, these guys did 2 double drop kicks, which you hardly ever see anybody do
Right.
one. And they had a most unusual finish where Johnny went to the far side of the ring, climbed up on the top rope, and Davey took the guy that he's going to do this, the jump on, and he fires him across the ring, and Johnny jumps from the top rope. And that's very unusual. I've never seen that done before.
Yeah.
Pretty unique. These guys are spending some time in that dressing room and getting ready
Putting
to get
stuff
themselves
together.
over.
Sure. Well, you know, and the teamwork today, if you watch current product, and I'm not knocking it, it's just that you don't see this type of quick switching in and out teamwork, which is what tag teams are about, keeping a fresh guy in if you've got the advantage. But these guys, you see it here.
And they do it in every match.
Absolutely.
They do it as part of their match. Video of the week comes next, I think, and that was Bill Dundee, his second video, and he was a heel.
Yeah,
A lot of people may not realize that in these films, in these videos, they were done it years earlier.
And I brought that up to Ron before we started recording today because I had, just in watching the video, I'm watching his movements and his mannerisms, except for in the ring, outside the ring, and I thought, hell, he's working heel in Memphis. Now stop and think. USA is on one end of the state, Memphis on the other end of the state, but the televisions didn't overlap. So he was the bad guy in Memphis, and over here he was a baby face.
So basically, he came in there about 1975.
Yeah.
Him and George Barnes from Australia.
Right.
Johnny Gray was the third Aussie. And then he was a heel for 2 or 3 years. Then he turned babyface, became a great one. Started calling himself Superstar at that point. And so by the time this video was made earlier, and when they showed this second one, he's a heel in it. And I don't think a lot of people really figured that out, probably.
No. Well,
except when he jumped up on the fence and
showed
showed his butt.
Yeah,
and showed his butt.
Yeah.
So,
but, you know, let's talk about videos a little bit. I think we've covered here that in '75, when Southeastern went to Channel 10 in Knoxville, we had innovations in wrestling television that had never been done before, and many of them are still being done today. Well, the Memphis end had the same thing because Jerry Jarrett started doing these music videos like this one here that Bill has done, and that he was the forerunner and before his time. You see all the music videos today, and all the of course, the production is far more sophisticated, but that was the initial beginning. And Jerry did a lot of hell. I've used him with Austin Idol, Lawler had. I mean, virtually the Fantastics, Rock and Roll Express. He did videos.
He had his own equipment in his home.
Yeah.
He had a big old home in Nashville, and down in the basement
Yeah.
he had his own.
And Mike,
studio.
what was Mike's last name that used to do a lot of his videography and editing? But Mike was a genius with the cut and paste stuff.
Putting them together.
Yes,
And,
he was absolutely.
first interview was the Dog Stomper and the RPMs and Ron Wright, all of them out there, and they were talking about what's going to happen on the following Knoxville show, basically, and then there was a little short segment there with my dad again talking about the USA Wrestling School, and then then the second match was Chuck Singer versus Tennessee champion Buddy Landell. Now I don't know much about Chuck Singer, and after watching him, he was pretty green, and he hadn't been in the ring long. And Landell took advantage of that. If anybody would, Landell would.
Yes, he would.
He basically took 99% of the match,
Right.
and ended up knocking him out with his black glove, and he did his thing, which that was pretty much the way Terry Landell. That was his work,
Yeah. Well, when the glove, the whole thing of loading the glove, you don't see it on this, but Ron Wright had a loaded boot.
Don Carson had a loaded black glove.
Yes, he
For
called
many,
it
many
peanut
years
butter.
It's peanut butter.
Yes.
And but this is considerable length of time after that era.
Sure.
It's 8 years basically after that era, and Landale using that, it made a little bit of sense because it wasn't exactly like what they had been seeing. The second interview on the show was the Dundee and the Riches and Furnace, and they talked about this card for Knoxville. They didn't talk about anything about except the main event, which was called the Cyclone Stampede match.
Explain that to the people.
Okay, Cyclone Stampede match, and I think this might have been it may have been where Vince got some of his ideas for some of his events. This match is every person involved in the event went to the ring. They pulled a number out of the hat, and then everybody went back to the dressing room except for number 1 and number 2. They started the match. 1 minute later, they ring the bell, and the second guy would come. Number 3 would come to the ring. A minute later, number 4. And the deal was in this, you not only could eliminate them by throwing them over the top rope, but you could eliminate them with a pinfall. The last man in the ring got 25 grand. So it was kind of an unusual way of doing a battle royal. And, I think some of that stuff has been...
Well, you know what? Here again, this is it's going back to the 70s again. But the Midcoat Tournament that we had in Knoxville was a 2-night affair, and I don't know that was ever
been done. Probably never been done again. Was one of the greatest events of all time.
What we had is a Friday night, Friday and Saturday, Friday night, Saturday. And there were boxes in the lobby of the Knoxville Civic Coliseum, and each box had a wrestler's name on it that was going to be in this tournament. And so the ladies that came to the matches could put their name on a piece of paper and drop it in the box of the wrestler who they would want to represent. And so then all of us, the night, the first round was on Friday night, all the wrestlers involved went to the ring, and we each reached in the box with our name and drew a lady's name. And she came down and was put in a chair. When we wrestled, she sat in a chair, I mean, not near the ring where she'd get hurt or anything, but in a chair in our corner. And the guys that won on Friday went on to Saturday. But the point is, whichever guy won this, the lady got a mink coat.
It was an interactive wrestling event.
Yes.
Maybe the first of its kind.
Yeah.
Great. We actually did it in several different cities, other than Knoxville as well. And, bought a mink coat. It was worth it. It was worth it, and wow, it was a tremendous reaction. And you would see those women down there on that first row.
Yeah.
When their 2 guys were in that ring, wow, they were highly involved.
Yeah.
It was, my gosh,
yes.
I'm going to get a chance to win this mink coat.
Yeah.
So, we were ahead of our time on a whole lot.
A lot of things, yes,
a whole
absolutely.
lot of things. So this was the main event, was that Cyclone Stampede. Now, they didn't show the entire card, but there were 6 other matches besides this basically it's kind of a battle royal, Cyclone Stampede. And I noticed too, man, we're only 4 shows in at this point, Les, but the crowd is with it. The crowd is already reacting. We're getting somewhere. And building a wrestling company, until you get that crowd off their butts and then standing up a little bit and really into a match, you're never going to get a big crowd at a Coliseum. So, we're starting to see that growth about 3 or 4 weeks.
And, you mentioned filming these in three show blocks, right? So we're doing the 4th show, but actually there'll be 2 more following us in that same block. But a great majority of these people have been to 4 shows for TV and the Coliseum show.
Right.
So they're pretty much into the characters and who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. So they're invaluable to have, because then the people at home, that's the thing too, in the studio setting, the louder the crowd, the more excitement that it peels out onto that TV screen too.
And you mentioned it earlier, as this segment ends, as this interview ends, and it's got the Riches in it, when they go to the break, and then instead of the bumper that was normally used, they went to the crowd and they had some girls that had a Party Boys poster, right?
Yeah.
It was they're really getting these fans involved, and the Party Boys are starting to get over, and so
I don't think I think that's different today too. The fans aren't as personally or emotionally involved. They're still emotionally, but fact that we've talked about Beulah, the older lady that had been at ringside, who had the Armstrongs to her house for dinner on Sundays and that sort of thing. But When Whitey Caldwell and I were the first hot baby faces on John Guzana's TV in 1969, I remember we got a Christmas card sent to the TV station from one of the sororities, University of Tennessee, and it looked like every girl in that sorority had signed the card, right? You don't expect, but the city was caught up, and realize back then, we're talking 60s, 70s, and now even into the early 80s, there wasn't a lot. We were the entertainment. There wasn't Major League Baseball or football.
No, there was nothing else except Tennessee football. Basketball had some pretty good teams about that time frame.
And
the Ernie and Bernie show was big time in the 80s. Grunfeld and them.
And we might mention too that on one occasion, how hot Southeastern Wrestling was on Channel 10 is that the University of Tennessee football team went to South Bend, Indiana to play Notre Dame. It may have been the first time ever, but at least it was the first time in a long time. And Channel 26 sent trucks up, and they had it on TV in Knoxville Saturday afternoon. Our TV show aired from 2 to 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And the best that the Vols versus the Fighting Irish could do in ratings was tie us. Which was a win for us, quite frankly, because if you've been around Knoxville,
biggest football game maybe in the history of UT.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And we did just as big an audience as they did.
So yes, that tells you how hot wrestling was in the area at that point in time.
So next thing on there, I believe, was the RPM's video.
Yeah.
And it was shot in Memphis. It's another Jerry production like you're talking about. And they went to Graceland. They finished that video. There's a theater downtown in Memphis called the Orpheum,
right?
And it was a really famous old theater. And if you noticed on the last shot on that video, the RPMs, Welcome the RPMs, was on the marquee of the theater, and that's why obviously they're doing that and checking like, hey, look at this.
Sure.
And like I say, Jarrett was way ahead of his time. He was creating these great videos, and we're able to utilize them here in 1988.
Well, we had some of those even back in the 70s. Yes. He had a few that I didn't want to use.
And we did a few. We did a few ourselves.
Yeah,
actually, we did some ourselves.
We did. We did Garden. We did Stomper. We did Tony Charles. We did
lots of them. Lots of them as well. So third match on the card was Craig Brown. Who was a guy that Bill Dundee had brought with him from Nashville. He was a guy that's just learning to wrestle. He's a little better than the guy in the second match, the Chuck Singer.
Right.
But, and he's wrestling Hector Guerrero. And wow, I'd forgotten what a great wrestler the Guerreros were. All of them. Wasn't just Hector or Eddie. And I mean, it was all of that family were great wrestlers. And he got he underhooked both his arms at one point in that, and I'm wondering where he's going to go. I couldn't remember the match, and he double-armed him, a double-arm back suplex on an underhooked arm.
Right.
You don't see that anymore.
No,
tremendous wrestling move, right? I was like, wow, Hector, what a great move.
I wrestled their dad in 1966, Gory Guerrero, out of the Phoenix territory, and of course. Knew Chavo Sr., Jr., Eddie Guerrero, when he took a break from WWE, came to Cincinnati and trained with me at Heartland Wrestling, and also helped me work with the kids there. But you're talking about Eddie showed our kids. I call them the Guerrero rolls, and of course I'm not gonna, at my age, I'm not going to show it to you anyway. But there were these rolls where you grab your ankles or grab the backs of your legs, but showing coordination and balance, right? You had to come to your feet. It wasn't like you just stopped and got up. But anyway, he showed these, and his dad made them, him and all his brothers, they had to perfect these rolls. There were like 5 different styles before they were allowed in the wrestling ring.
Yeah.
That was before they could get in a wrestling ring. They had
great family, great history, great wrestlers. And used to forearms. He's a heel, and he didn't go in there, and he wasn't throwing a lot of punches, but boy, he was making those forearms look good.
Yes.
And that was a great, it reminded me of Junior. Dory Jr.
Yeah.
Dory Jr. hardly ever punched
European
anybody.
uppercut. Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you know, really used them to great effect. And you know, and then after the match was over, they went straight to the set with Landell and him, and they plugged the Stampede again. And then came along Wright, and then pretty much immediately after that, Wright, Stomper, the dog, and they started their own video. And they went back and touched last week's program.
Right.
They just showed what happened with Scott Armstrong and how the three of them had gotten on Scott, and then Scott came out in this show.
Which
Stomper's taking care of his opponent in the show, and Scott Armstrong gets even. He slides out there and he kind of attacks them this time, the dog.
Yeah.
And
And here's something Ron and I talked about before we started recording too, is booking philosophy. And I know you probably hear that talk, but to make it a point here, they showed the film for the massive brawl where basically the whole roster ran in the ring the week before, and then it happens again on this show. And I said to Ron, I said, I'm hoping I'm right when I say that wouldn't in a normal situation happen. It's called hot-shotting. We call it hot-shotting, but the point is, USA Wrestling was new at this point, 6 weeks total?
4 weeks. This is the
4 weeks
show.
of show, but I mean, then the house show too. Well, still 5 weeks at maximum.
Right.
But the point is, wouldn't be, if the company had been there a year, if the business was good, this would not have happened. This was to get people looking, to try to get everybody.
You have to build that audience.
Yeah, exactly. In a normal situation, say a year later, the idea is not to have these guys all banging each other, but your top heel, your top baby face is the idea of building a story that they want to kill each other, but you're not letting them get together yet. You're building that anticipation. You're making people, well, like with the heel, we want to see who so-and-so kick his rear end. We want to see, but you milk it.
As a booker, you want to do it slowly, and you don't have a choice. When you start a new company, you have to do things to really get enthusiasm built, to really get things going. Once you get things going, you can build a lot slower. Then you don't have to worry about building. Your characters are built. Now you've just got to figure out how to piece them together and put them together.
I'm going to tell them the anticipation story. You would laugh at it. Years ago, before he was ever, I don't remember who it was, but an old timer told me years ago, this is how he explained making people want to anticipate. He said, kid, if you go to a strip club, the girls don't come out without their clothes on and put them back on. You know why? Because there's nothing to anticipate. And as goofy as that may sound, that is exactly the philosophy to build a good program or a good feud between two wrestlers.
So basically, that was show number 4. They came back. I think we ended up, Gordon and I, on the end of it.
Well, you had Bullet. Bullet was just doing these little run-ins at the time, right? Was Bob being lazy, or he just trying to save him?
Bob was doing the booking with me, and he was actually doing most of the booking, so he was spending a lot of time in the back.
Yeah.
And he didn't need to build himself because he had been there as part of Continental.
Sure.
And the years right before.
Well, you
in the same year, basically.
And Ron, Stomper and Wright. Sure.
So he didn't have to do as much, and then so this next one is going to have the RPMs in it. It's going to have Bill Dundee in it, working live. It's going to have the dog, and it'll also have Cousin Junior that we saw just a little bit of on the last show, and obviously a lot more, lots of videos. We're really utilizing these videos for USA, a lot more than we did in Continental, Southeastern, or any other show.
Sure. And the times have changed a little bit. We're talking about a little 12 years from the time, or 13 years actually, from the time we started Southeastern in the same city, right?
Yeah.
So it's the complexion of things.
Yes, everything has basically changed.
Now you want to mention the new little deal that you're putting on the network that Bo's building for you.
Yes. On Southeastern Rewind, there's a new one on there with the Freebirds. And if you're a Freebird fan, and probably I think by the time people see this review, they'll probably have already found this Freebird thing. but it's called Southeastern Sweet Spot. It's something we're going to do every other week. And we're going to go back in Southeastern history, and we're going to pick certain things. And this was a feud between Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy after they had busted up as the Freebirds.
Right.
Michael Hayes comes home to Pensacola, where he was born and raised, and he's followed by Terry Gordy. Terry comes in as a heel, Michael's a baby face, and we create and we push that. And something else was going on at this same time. It's just to show what certain different companies were able to do with each other. We're working along with Georgia at this time. Georgia had them in first. Then they came to us.
Right.
We worked this angle and put them in the cage together, and then we had Michael Hay. We had the sheep herders, Jonathan Boyd, the originals, and Luke Williams, and Big Old Joe LeDuc end up in that cage with some scissors after Terry had won the match, and Terry's about to leave the ring, and they're going to cut Michael Hayes' hair, and Terry don't like the idea.
Right.
Anyway, it's a tremendous match, and then it ends up, they end up then taking this video from Alabama to the Georgia television, and they show this, and that's how they put those two guys back together.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that's just what was happening
Sure.
back in those days between different territories. Pretty unusual. You didn't see much of that.
No.
You know, but we were getting along great with Florida. We were getting along great with Georgia. We were getting along great with Jarrett and Memphis. And we were getting along great with Mid-South at that point.
So you're able to exchange some talent and some videos.
And some ideas,
Sure.
and even some angles.
Right,
So.
right. And the other thing we want to remind you about, coming up October the 13th, that's Wednesday night, we're going to do a dinner with a stud. It's going to be a live stud cast. It's going to be 2 hours instead of 1. It's going to be done at Calhoun's on the River in Knoxville, Tennessee. Beautiful restaurants down by the University of Tennessee, Neyland Stadium, right down the river. There's docks. It's going to be a heck of a night. Anyway, you get your barbecue. Calhoun's known for their barbecue buffet, baked beans, coleslaw rolls, iced tea, lemonade goes with the dinner. And of course, there's going to be a cash bar. We're going to have door prizes, and some of those door prizes will be wrestling collectibles. I mean, we're not just going to, this or that, but we're going to give some nice things, door prizes.
2 free 8x10.
Yeah.
Photos, autographed by you and I.
Yes. That.
We're going to shake hands with people. We're going to be there.
We're going to hang out with you.
We're going to hang out. And we're going to have a great time. Fans are going to get to see a great studcast. We're going to talk about not just one episode. We're going to break down.
Right.
We're going to break down the time frame from many years ago. 33 years ago, basically.
And your cousin Jimmy Gold is going to be with us. Buckhouse Buck in WCW, if you remember that.
It's going to be a great night.
Sure, you can ask us, all of us questions. The last hour will be Q&A sessions, giving away the door prizes. We hope to do this the second Wednesday of every month. And anyway, it's for the price of $30. That's your meal, the whole 9 yards, chance to win door prizes, so forth, so on. And
that's what you pay for the 2 photos.
Hell,
yes,
exactly.
$15 each.
Right.
So you get 2 photos, you get the free dinner, you get the free show, you get a question and answer show.
And some door prizes, chance to win some door prizes.
And door prizes, and then that question and answer show, these are going to be recorded. We're going to record these shows.
So you'll be on TV too.
You could be seen worldwide on YouTube asking your questions.
Yeah.
So, I think and it's, like I said, $30. You can go to my website, tnstud.com, and go to the stud store. It's the first item on there. And you better reserve them because the tickets are going.
Yeah, they're
going
going really good. But yeah, join us, and we're going to have a lot of fun. You'll enjoy the meal. Take my word for it. But yeah, it's something new we're planning. And some people have hit and said, "Why don't you take us on the road?" So should I be packing a bag, you think?
Well, we're going to see if it works in Knoxville. Look out, Birmingham.
Are we going to take our videographer with us? Do we get stuck with Brian too?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and thank you all very, very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all your great support on Southeastern Rewind. If you haven't subscribed, then you have subscribed. Obviously, you're watching this show. But tell your friends about us. And And I think what we're going to do there, look for your next Southeastern sweet spot. I'm pretty sure you may get to see the block busting, the actual block busting angle for this next
cool.
one, man.
All right, great. And join us next week, please.